Just get me off of the last. I showed it over here. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about the history of butter. According to webexodus.org, we can predate butter back 2,000 years before Christ. That's the only date that they can find that they can actually say butter was here that day. The Bible has several references to butter. In Genesis, Abraham was sitting outside of his tent when 3 angels appeared to him as men. He called into the tent and told his wife to make some bread. And he went and got a cow and dressed it and got some milk and butter, and that's what he served. There's also other references in the Bible as well. Some of the most common archaeological finds in Ireland today are barrels of ancient butter buried in peat bogs by the Norsemen in what are called firkins. A firkin is a very tightly made cask of wood that is filled with butter and then basically stuffed, packed in there, and then buried underneath the peat bog. They would do this for several years, and they would actually plant trees so they could remember where they buried the butter. Obviously, some of the butter, because we're still finding it by the ton, basically. And then Egyptians actually ate butter as well. It was considered a food fit for the gods and was used as offering. So the better the bud, the finer the quality, the better the results that you would get from your deity. So what is butter? The word butter comes from boutyron, which can be translated to mean cow cheese in Greek. Now the Greeks didn't invent butter because they actually didn't have cows. They had goats and sheep. So they borrowed the word from where they exported the butter from. EatWisconsinCheese.com defines butter as a food product exclusively from milk, cream, or both, with or without salt, and containing at least 80% milk fat by weight. You can roughly make 1 pound of butter with 6 cups of heavy cream, so it's not very cost effective to make it at home unless you enjoy making it or just like the flavor of homemade butter. And in ancient times, it was actually made from water buffalo or camel milk. So how is butter made? Well, in the 19th century, butter was made by allowing milk to stand and sour naturally. The cream was then skimmed off the top, and that was put into the butter churn, and then it would be churned for many hours, depending on how long it took and how much you put in there. In the Old West, the wives would actually use this butter that they made at home to sell to the local stores to buy other things they needed, like flour, grains, things like that. Now butter is actually made in factories, and instead of just making butter, it is made as a byproduct of cheese. The whey from cheese, which is the liquid portion that is separated from the cheese, and they use that to make butter instead of actually bringing cream in just for that. It's much more cost effective that way. And then they don't waste anything. The whey was actually used to feed cattle or other animals. And so now they actually make it into something. Alternatives to butter churning, you could take a jar, fill it with some cream, a little salt, shake it until it separates. Obviously it's going to take a while for that. Or you can get a hand or a stand mixer and whip it into butter until it separates. And then you just drain the liquid. What is the difference between butter and margarine? Margarine is actually made from vegetable or other oils that have been extracted chemically and refined by the use of hydrogen. They take a vat of this oil and they bubble hydrogen through it and make it into a solid. So it actually has no dairy whatsoever, but it does still contain 80% fat. So they're basically the same as far as fat content. Margarine actually developed in 1869 by a French chemist. Napoleon III offered a prize to the first scientist that could invent a synthetic edible fat, because the land at that time did not have a whole lot of dairy, and they needed something during the war, so they made margarine. According to Fitbit.com, it contains less saturated fat than butter, but it also contains trans fats that lower the good cholesterol and actually increase your bad cholesterol, so not that great. The process of making margarine destroys the vitamin E oil, and it also adds nickel and other chemicals to it that can actually be harmful if you consume large quantities of margarine. While butter is an excellent source of vitamins A, D, E, and K, none of these fat-soluble vitamins are found in margarine. They actually have to be put in, if they can be. So today I've discussed butter, its history, what it's made from, and how it's made, as well as the differences between butter and margarine. I hope this made you aware of the unique and long history of butter and how it's made, as well as the differences between butter and margarine, which are commonly used today, and that both of them, depending on how much you consume, can be good or bad for you. Nice.